I feel like I should start this off with a confession, which is I was midway through this book and realized I'd never read it before.
I don't know if I ever read this book before. It's at this point in my life, having read so much YA, it's almost like reading the text of every YA book that came afterwards. And it's just, there's nothing that happens in this book except some of the God stuff that hasn't been done a billion times by other writers later on.
Yeah, it all kind of blurs into each other after a certain point, no matter how well it is done.
Right.
I would argue that this book... Yeah.
No, wait, what?
Go on.
No, you go on.
I would argue that this book sounds more like an 11-year-old than any other book.
I would argue that this book needed more of these kids to kill each other in some sort of an arena.
Yeah, why aren't we talking about the Hunger Games, and what are we talking about instead?
Yeah, how dare we talk about a book with no child murder or death, with no kids falling off ropes. How dare we?
I try to do a seamless transition, and you just interrupt me by reminding me that I made us read the Hunger Games.
Hey, this book is like every Georgia Nicholson novel, but with a likable protagonist.
I did notice that.
Yeah.
I did notice the Georgia resemblance here and there. Little less spicy.
Yeah.
Less,
And her heart's
painted,
actually in the right
say.
place.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. Her parents are pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
A few key differences. Anyway, what are we talking about?
And why?
I didn't even say. So this is a podcast called Pizza Toast.
It is.
I was going to make some joke about what it was about today, and then it just fell flat in my head, and it's like, I can't think of anything.
You're
funny.
not going to be able to think of any jokes that everyone else who will be covering this book in the next few weeks is not also going to make.
Okay. Yeah, so we talk about middle grade and YA novels and the TV and movie adaptations thereof and their cultural long tail. And this movie has a long enough tail that they're adapting it into this book, rather, long enough tail that they are adapting it into a movie that will be in theaters at the end of this month.
Yes, a movie 50 years in the waiting as far as like the production of it goes, and a movie that the author of the book herself has said is better than the book.
The book we're talking about is Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret.
Mm-hmm.
Which really should be more, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, because she doesn't always use proper punctuation.
Yeah, this title, if typing this out, it's Are You There, comma, God, question mark, it's me, comma, Margaret, period. That's, writing this title out is writing 2 sentences, and that's unfair to me.
Take it up with Judy Blume, the author of this book, who almost really messed things up this week before we covered it by saying something pretty dumb and then backtracking the pretty dumb thing.
Listen, the woman is like 85 years old.
As soon as she said it, I was like, she's just very old. I bet she doesn't know what a turf is.
Judy Blume. Yeah, I mean, she's 85. She was born in 1938. I'm going to cut her the same slack I cut every octogenarian who says something, who misspeaks in our world of immediate social ostracization.
She had to clarify swiftly. She said something in support of J.K. Rowling without considering what that might mean. And then she said something very supportive about the LGBT plus community. And I think we can all just give her a pass. And also, it has very little to do with this book in particular.
Now, you said that you were reading this book, which is called Are You There, God? It's Anne Margaret. And you said you had never read it before.
I don't think I have.
Were you a Judy Blume reader? Were you a Blumenstein, a Bloomhead, a Bloomiac?
I was not a Bloomhead. I think I've read everything I have read by her. I have read as an adult. A friend and I, a few years ago, got into a discussion about the book Forever, and she talked about how that was the first book that treated sex as something that feels more important than it actually is. And I was curious about that. So I read that book.
Yeah.
And I really like that book. I think it's very important. I think it's funny that it was banned so often because it's I get why it was, but it's a pretty important message. It carries through. And this book is a very different flavor from that.
Yeah, and she's gone on record as saying that Forever is essentially a spiritual successor to this book, and Forever and Are You There, God, It's Me, Margaret are the two books of hers that she has done rewrites on to update them with more sort of like, because she's discussing something so serious, she has changed a little bit of the language over the years for modern readers. The big deal one in this book being she changed like menstrual belts into sanitary pads, because as she said, she's like, even by the time this book was published, belts were on their way out and most kids didn't even know what they were when they read it.
This book does have one of the most relatable parts of this book for me is the whole question around menstruation and the the very specific detail where it's like, oh, this hits me where I lived like 25 years ago, where your mom won't let you wear tampons because they're dangerous or something.
Yeah. You can't wear them until you're like 16 or something. If you wear a tampon, Christy, that means you're no longer a virgin.
I know, and I get that, and I understand that.
It's because there's a little man inside each tampon. A little homunculus. So it counts.
I hate that. Have you read much of her, though?
I'm looking right now at her book list. And there are books in here that I've read that I was like, oh, that's Judy Blume? Like, I didn't... Because her books are kind of divided up between, like, young adult books and then, like, kids' chapter books. So I was thinking to myself... So, okay... I was a Beverly Cleary stan. Like I was a
Yes, you were.
Yeah. As is obvious by a podcast I used to have. Beverly Cleary's books followed very predictable patterns in that if she had a book about Henry Huggins, it was called Henry Huggins. And if she wrote a sequel to it, it was called Henry and the Paper Route or Henry and Ribsy. If she wrote a book about Ramona, it was called Ramona Quimby, age 8. Ramona and her father, Ramona her mother. If she wrote a book about someone named Ellen Tebbets, it was called Ellen Tebbets. Judy Blume's books follow this trend where, like, she writes a book about a kid in elementary school, and it is called The One in the Middle is the Green Kangaroo. And you're like, I don't know what this book is about. Or It's Not the End of the World. Or The Pain and the Great One. Or Blubber. And you're like, I don't know what any of these plots are, I guess. And so as a kid, I kind of shied away from those books. I was like, you're making me work a little too hard. I want to know if this book is about someone named Ellen Tebbets or not, or Emily with a runaway imagination. I don't want to have to figure out that otherwise known as Sheila the Great is part of the Fudge series. That's a bridge too far, Bloom. That's my Judy Blume.
So I was much more of a Paula Danziger, Anna Martin gal. We know about the Anna Martin. We don't know about the Paula Danziger. Mostly because there are not Paula Danziger adaptations, and otherwise I would have made you read so many of her books by now. But I did read Freckle Juice. Okay. So, and I did read Summer Sisters, which is one of, like, it's a little bit older, a little bit more teen than this one. And I think it was just at random, because I definitely didn't. I picked this one up and did not finish it. I think probably because the religion stuff did not sit well with young Christian Christy. That is my guess.
Yeah, I'm looking at the list. I know I read Freckle Juice, but I think that's just because it was a book that was popular in my school. Like, and I know Same. I read The One in the Middle is the Green Kangaroo because it was assigned in elementary school. But I avoided.
I thought you just had to know.
Yeah,
I thought you just had to uncover that mystery.
I didn't know what it was about, and I didn't read the Fudge books because I don't like Fudge, and someone was like, yeah, it's about a crappy kid. And I was like, I don't want to read about some crappy kid. I don't want to read about, I don't like
I'm not
books.
In on that.
Like, Ramona was the closest I could come to, like, the annoying little sister, but she grew up, that's the whole point, is that she went from being the annoying little sister to being annoyed by little kids. Fudge is just a piece of junk. he's a garbage boy, and I didn't need to know any more about him. He also had his own TV show.
Also, yeah, Ramona, even in Ramona the Pest, which is my favorite, Ramona, she's an annoying kid sister, but nothing she does is particularly bad. It's actually a lot about people picking on her. And the worst thing she does, aside from pulling a girl's hair, is gets her class on a tangent about where Mike Mulligan went to the bathroom when he's operating his steam shovel, which is one of the greatest scenes in all of literature.
Which is a good question. Did Mike Mulligan...
It's a really good question.
...just crap his pants while he was operating the steam shovel?
I will say, like, I have so much sympathy for the middle-aged and 20-something adults in this book. Because it's just like, oh, you're surrounded by these 11-year-olds and also your in-laws and your parents who are being unreasonable. Like, it's a lot. Yeah.
Okay, so this book gets super real, like 2 chapters before the end, when the anti-Semitic racist grandparents show up and God vomit all over the place. And I feel bad for everyone involved.
What I really love is that the Jewish grandmother desperately wants the granddaughter to be Jewish, but she's also just kind of like, yeah, do your own thing, girl.
Right. Like,
she's great.
When Margaret's like, I went to temple, and her grandmother's like, I knew you were Jewish, but again, like, also, like, the Jewish identity is far more, like, important. It's a far smaller percentage of the population than, like, the God botherers that her grandparents are. Like, they're just mean and weird. Fundies.
Okay, so what's this book's whole deal? Like, what are we talking about?
Right.
Here? There's a girl, and her name is Margaret. She lives on the Upper West Side, but that is where she comes from.
Right.
She doesn't live on the Upper West Side at the beginning of the book. She is already in New Jersey because her parents wanted a yard. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
It also sounds a little like they wanted to get rid of. They wanted a little bit of separation between their family and the grandmother on the paternal side.
Yeah, I feel like this is, especially in this era, the late 60s, when this book is set. It was published in 70, but it's set in the late 60s. I feel like this is a time when a lot of people were fleeing the city to the suburbs of New Jersey and elsewhere. Like, I think that's like an actual historical migration point. People were like, we're gonna have a yard, we're gonna move to Levittown, we're gonna move to, like, we're gonna give our kids the childhood that we wished we had. All we had was this bustling metropolis with endless possibilities. We'd rather our kids be stuck in the burbs, forced to compare period schedules with other 11-year-olds.
There's an aspect of the fantastical to me here, in as much as Margaret immediately has 3 best friends the moment she moves there.
It's a bit Babysitter's Clubby, actually. It's that, yeah, like the new kid moves in, and there's immediately a group of kids who are like, we'll take this one.
And I mean, she's a perfectly nice and like she seems like a sweet kid. Seems easy to get along with.
Yeah.
They're all fascinated by the fact that she has no religion. Everyone is fascinated by this fact.
And she is exotic because she is from New York, which makes her an object of fascination and ultimately disappointment, because she's not cosmopolitan. She's not a fashionable dresser.
She's not particularly cool. She's a pretty normal 11-year-old. And she does have a cool grandmother who still lives in the city and takes her to Lincoln Center once a month to see a show.
Right.
I think that I found very sweet.
So so the basic premise is that her father is Jewish, and her mother is Christian fundamentalist raised by wackadoos. And they got married and decided, and her parents disowned her basically for marrying a Jewish guy. So they decided they're never going to raise their kid a religion. So the basic idea behind the book is that in a Dictionary of the Khazars-esque twist, Margaret is going to try all the religions out and see which one is the truth. Not Islam, because she doesn't know any Muslims. She says that in the book, which is I was waiting for her that to be mentioned. She points out that
she doesn't know any Buddhists or Muslims, so she didn't give those a try.
Right. And that's the skeleton of the book, is that she's trying to figure out what religion she should be. Ironically, of course, she's talking to God the entire time. Spoilers.
Yeah,
that's all the religion she needs.
God, yes. She talks to God in the same way that, like, yes, she does ask for things, but it's basically a journal. It's like we get these entries in italics offset that are basically just her talking to herself, but addressing God.
Right, but it's kind of Tevye-esque. Like she takes great comfort in talking to God in this book. And she does acknowledge when good things happen that it might be God's doing. And when bad things happen that might be God's doing. She worries that she's having an influence on fate by insulting God more or less at times. And at one point, abandoning God entirely because things really stop working out the way she wants them to. She
has a lot of concerns about puberty, specifically. Yeah. As we all did at one point. I mean, the book concludes with her getting her period, which is very exciting for everyone involved.
We get a little tie-in too. This book functions as a prequel to Stranger Things, as her best friend is Nancy Wheeler,
I noticed that.
Who will go on to battle demigorgons in the Upside Down, along with her boyfriend Jonathan Byers, and a bunch of other kids on bikes in the 80s. So, Nancy Wheeler, and also she's another one of her friends is Janie Loomis, and I was like, any relation to Dr. Loomis? Is this a Halloween crossover? We could have all kinds of fun in the Bloomverse.
So yeah, she has 3 friends. They form a little club. She finds out that her friends all have a crush on their teacher, who is a 24-year-old man that the children initially torment relentlessly. But over time, they come to respect him, I guess. We don't hear about any more torment over time.
He's a first-year teacher, which he's young, and he's kind of... Mr. Benedict. I thought that he was going to end up... Later on in other books, he would have become like the words of wisdom, or he'd be the person that our hero connects with, or teach a No, he's just a fumbling dork and kind of disappears from the story after a while. But also like may or may not uncomfortably leer at Laura Danker's chest.
I feel so bad for Laura Danker. This is a very Laura Danker did nothing wrong book to me. So yeah, Margaret's friends are Nancy Wheeler, who's kind of a jerk, Janie, who is sweet and like her ends up being kind of her closest friend, though we don't really hear that much about it. It's just that they end up pairing up more often. And then one other girl whose name I don't remember, because nothing ever happens.
Gretchen,
of course,
Potter, who ate 6 Oreos and who Nancy comments on her weight, causing her to put 4 of the Oreos back.
Rude. She should be able to eat 6 Oreos.
But Gretchen is the Jewish friend who
yes, she goes to temple
because because Margaret makes friends. Margaret goes to Gretchen's temple, and then she goes to I believe Janie's church.
Yes, and after going to temple, she goes to one of the high holy days. Is it Rosh Hashanah? She goes with her grandma.
Oh goodness, does she go to Rosh Hashanah, or is it Yom Kippur?
It might be Yom Kippur.
I think it might be Yom Kippur.
I think it's Yom Kippur.
Yeah.
This book also takes place over the course of a school year, but time moves lightning fast.
This is a quick book. It's short. It's
such a short read.
Events happen just like they pop. It's just like you don't have a moment to think about something and you're on to the next plot point. Causing me at times to be like, how are they adapting this into a movie? So much happens.
I don't know what they're going to do, and I'm very curious to see what they do. It seems like because of the actors they cast as the parents, it seems like they are going to be given pretty heavy weight in the story, which I'm comfortable with because they are here too.
Who's playing the mom?
Yeah, the parents feels like it feels bad to see some of what is happening to them, mostly the mother's relationship with her parents, which is fully estranged. Then she sends them a Christmas card. Then they show up, and then they try to convert everyone once again.
Yeah, they're this hateful...
And they get kicked out.
Yeah, they're this hateful older couple who... Yeah, they haven't spoken to her. There's a big argument between her parents. He's like, "Why'd you send your parents a Christmas card?" She's like, "I was feeling sentimental." And then and because her grandparents show up, she has to cancel the trip to Florida to visit her paternal grandmother, who wants nothing but the best for her. It's like this whole mess. Her grandparents ruin her vacation. Her grandmother shows up, all hugs. And then the two grandparents are kicked out of their lives again. Sayonara. What's amazing is this is the part of the book I related to, because my mom's parents boycotted my parents' wedding, and refused to acknowledge my mother was marrying a Mexican. And they worked things out eventually. But it was interesting seeing that reflected in this book, like that I was like, oh yeah, this did happen. This was a thing. It was you married outside of our permission, and my parents didn't elope, but it's ugly and it causes rifts. And I was pleased to see that her mother didn't back down.
No, I'm very proud of her parents in this scenario. Yeah, actually, her mother in particular. And it also means that we get to meet her grandmother's boyfriend, Mr. Binneman. It's an incredible name.
who's a delightful delight.
Yes. Also, there's this thread throughout the book where Nancy makes them all make boy lists, which is lists of the boys they like in descending order. Margaret will not include the boy she likes most because he is best friends with Nancy's brother. She likes a boy who goes by the name of Moose,
but who is not very Moose-esque. He's not a large.
He's just a normal kid who like cuts lawns for hire. In my favorite scene in the book, they hire Moose after Margaret's father nearly cuts his finger off.
That's horrifying.
Like, it's really bad.
That happened really bad to a girl in my high school who tried to stop a lawnmower blade with her bare foot.
Well, why did she do that is my question.
She wasn't very bright, I guess. It cut her toe off. She got it reattached. Okay. She walked around the school in a big plastic boot for a while, and we were like, "What'd you do?" And she's like, "I tried to stop a lawnmower blade with my foot." And we're like, why were you mowing your lawn on your bare feet anyway? That's disgusting. You could step in an ant bed. Anyway, he sticks his hand in the lawnmower.
So this is one of those things where it's like, oh, we have a lawn now. Clearly, the father is going to cut it. He's going to have a great time. He's going to do all this outdoors upkeep. But no, he goes to empty. I think he goes to empty the grass out of the bag, and he does it while the lawnmower is still on. Which
I don't understand. Did he stick his hand all the way in the? It just. What were you doing?
That's
dude?
My guess. And then he yells like there's been an accident or something like that, which is very funny.
Yeah, he does that thing where you're like trying not to go into shock.
Yeah, basically. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's a good scene. Big fan. Yeah, so but they all have crushes on boys. They all have a crush on the same boy, but it's not really a crush so much as he's handsome.
It's the peer mandated crush. Like, everyone has to have a crush on this boy because they've decided that he's the best boy. Were you ever the best? The one at the top of anyone's list? I wasn't.
Absolutely not. Were you?
No, God, no. There was no one ever sat around putting old Phil at the top of their list. I wasn't even the Moose. I may have been like I'm kind of ashamed to have a crush on this guy, but no.
I do like that there is one where she is questioned why she likes him, and it's like, well, she doesn't explain why, but it's his fingernails are clean and he's polite, and it's like, I can respect those reasons for having a crush on somebody. At least one of they both are like multiple girls kiss him in a game of spin the bottle / 2 minutes in the closet.
Yeah, the most awkward way of saying 2 minutes in heaven. We're gonna play a little game I like to call. Go in the closet in the dark and paw at each other for a couple of minutes. And that's where,
And
yeah,
in Margaret's case, the cutest boy kisses her twice. Once while she's kind of reacting to the fact that she's been kissed, and when she comes out, she tells JD that he kissed her at least 5 times, and she lost count, which is very funny.
there is something very real about the way these kids treat sex, having no idea what's going on or what is expected of them. Nancy Wheeler, by the way, is... What I like about Nancy's character is that she's a jerk and she's bossy
She's mean.
and she shames the other girls, but you can tell from the way Bloom writes her that it's just because she is massively insecure and terrified of her body and like what's happening to her. And she's so insecure that she takes that on the other girls. And you figure that out at the end where you find out she's been lying about having had her period. And she doesn't really grow much, but she grows a little bit when she gets caught in her lie.
Yeah, she's very. She ends up being much sweeter to Nancy or to Margaret after that happens because Margaret keeps her secret.
Is Margaret her Barb? Does Margaret end up in the Upside Down?
No, because I don't like Barb. I like Margaret.
Do you not like Barb because of her character in Stranger Things, or do you not like Barb because of her character in that Netflix movie where she catfishes a boy into kissing her? The one, did you ever see that one?
This.
She
No, I think that she's a real drip in Stranger Things.
Yeah,
and
really
she shames Nancy for totally normal teenage behavior.
Yeah, she's the worst. There's something about like the nerdy friend who you're supposed to like be like, oh, the poor nerd, but then you're like, no, I'm not about that.
She's mean to Nancy, who's a perfectly nice girl on the show, too.
Yeah, she's like the nerdy friend from Freaks and Geeks, who you're like, just back off. Back off.
Yes.
You're not cool anymore. You're not cool.
But
like, you'll never be cool.
And then we have there is also an ancillary character here named Laura Danker.
We
and
love
the whole
Laura.
time I thought that, yeah.
No, go on.
I thought that by the end of the book, Margaret was going to be friends with Laura Danker. She's not. She's really mean to Laura Danker in one instance, and then she does apologize afterward. But she still feels bad about it, which is fair.
My two favorite scenes in the book are the Laura Danker confrontation and the Moose confrontation, where they both call out Margaret for believing lies that people have been telling. So Laura is the unfortunate girl who develops before everyone else. And because of that, she's in 6th grade, but she looks like a teacher. She's tall, she's busty. I guess she has curves. And because of that, everyone ostracizes her and makes up stories about how she makes out with the boys behind the A&P. And of course, all the other girls who don't know what's going on with their own bodies just go along with this. So Laura has no friends. Margaret confronts her. She gets assigned they get assigned to be partners in a project, and Margaret makes a comment about her going off behind the A&P with these boys, and Laura runs out of the room and she's like, I am Catholic. I would never do that. I don't do that. So Laura goes from like sympathetic to like the reason she gets like really weird religion and like dives into the confessional and like pours her guts out to the priest. And I'm like, oh, she wasn't going to be friends with Margaret anyway. She's like really Catholic. She's like not fun Catholic, but like you go to church 4 times a week Catholic. Like there's 2 kinds of Catholics in the world. There's the Catholics you want to hang out with and get drunk. And then there's like the ones who are always at church. She's the second one.
Yeah, she's the second one. And Margaret, in her final report on religion, does mention that she attempted to go to confession, but couldn't think of anything to say because she accidentally enters the confessional booth after Laura.
Well, and you can't just...
The entire time... Yeah.
I was going to say, you can't just...
this is probably more relevant.
Drop into confession because there's like rules and stuff. You have to say things in a certain way and they'll know if you're not a Catholic.
Yeah, you have to cross yourself. You got to do the whole, forgive me, Father. There's a lot going on there. I'm not Catholic. No. I've never been Catholic.
Do you want to be Catholic?
Not at all.
No offense to our Catholic listeners, our hordes of Catholic fans. Your religion is beautiful. It's the one true religion.
I'm so glad you found something that you care about.
Yeah.
But at the beginning of the year, Mr. Benedict assigns the most nebulous assignment in the world. Just like pick something that's important to you and do a report on it and work on it all year. There are no rules to this assignment. Early in the year, he also makes them lists of things they like and don't like. I keep calling her Laura. Margaret says she doesn't like religious holidays, and he asks her about it, which is weird. Speaks very much to him being a new teacher, because he shouldn't ask her about this. And ultimately, she's like, I'm not a religion, so I don't like them. Great.
I don't know though.
She decides to.
It is the late 60s. I think you can still get an F for like not celebrating Christmas in public school.
Fair. So she decides to do her year-long project on religion, and she just writes a single sheet at the end of the day that is like, I decided I'm not going to go with any of these. Right. It's not for me. It's really good. Because the core of one of the cores of this book is these letters she's writing to God, and I think she's still. I can't imagine she stops writing the letters. But she sure doesn't subscribe to any particular organized religion.
No, and I think that's the point. Like, she has a good relationship with the God she believes in, and that's a God who'll listen, a God who'll like make her feel better about her choices and like keep her on the right track. I think the conclusion she comes to is that she doesn't just need a religion as long as she has a relationship with God, which, you know, this is me speaking as an atheist, but that's cool with me. Like, that's fine. I think that's an A-okay choice to make, kid. I think you reach that point way before a lot of people do.
It's kind of nice to talk about a book with no subtext.
It is a book with no subtext. I mean, okay, we haven't even gotten to I must increase my bust. That's like the pivotal moment in this book.
This is also, I feel like this is the cultural impact of this book, too. Like, I can't visualize what they're doing. So I guess they put their fists together. What do they do?
I know exactly what they do, because a few years ago, Judy Blume was being interviewed on television, and they asked her to demonstrate I must increase my bust. So this is a real thing. Like, this is a thing that girls were taught to do in like magazines and stuff. Like, Blume didn't make this up. And in fact, I think the whole thing is I must increase my bust. The bigger the better, the tighter the sweater, the boys like us better, and so we
boys depend on us.
Something like that. Or the boys depend on us. Yeah, I've heard it a couple of different ways. But it's this. You take your arms like this, and you pull back and back and back.
Okay, so that is sort of what I was envisioning. It's not a thing I had to do or will ever have to do, but like real Laura Danker situation for me, honestly. But
it makes my back feel better. Yeah,
I mean, the whatever works.
It's a good
right?
stretch.
Yeah, this is a thing that they do in their little meetings. Because none of them have developed yet. They do. Nancy does require them all to get a bra. They all get this. One of them is able to get like a 32 AA or something. The rest of them all get something called a grow bra. It gets bigger with you as you develop.
I wonder at what point it
Margaret
stops being
stuffs
wearable.
her bra at 2 different points. It's great.
The stuffing of the bra. Has anyone ever gotten away with that?
No. Anytime it happens in a teen movie, you eventually see the stuffing removed.
Yes.
This is,
mostly it's because your friends notice that suddenly you have breasts, is the way it usually works.
Yeah, I think that's probably a big part of it. The thing is, push-up bras are basically the same principle, but people don't necessarily notice that right away.
Well, because they're designed that way. Like, that's their job. Like, they push up.
The utter subtlety of suddenly having perk to your chest. Yeah, but this is a big part of their meetings. They do it at one point 35 times, another point 50 times, which sounds kind of exhausting after a while. That does feel nice, though.
It does feel nice.
You weren't wrong.
Yeah, 50 times though. Yeah. And they get caught doing it by Moose and the boy, and like that doesn't really go anywhere. They get made fun of a little bit. There's
pretty funny,
except for the fact that like there's the racist anti-Semitic grandparents. The stakes are fairly low in this book. It's mostly
this is a low stakes book.
Yeah, which is nice. You know, she does not shoot the president at the end in the chest with an arrow. Is the point I'm trying to make. But what's amazing is this book is, like Bridge to Terabithia, a linchpin in YA literature. Like, it is a monolith. It's an important book because nothing like this existed when it came out. Books didn't talk about periods. They certainly didn't hint at masturbation, which is mentioned a few times, like sort of like, not directly, but the boys only like dirty books, and the boys spend a lot of time with dirty books.
There's a Playboy at one point. You find out that, like, Margaret knows her father reads Playboy.
He just leaves him in the house.
Yeah, they're able to easily find it. I actually really like this, because this is like, oh, her parents are very open with her about who they are.
Okay, but did you ever have a friend whose father kept adult magazines just out in the open?
Oh no,
because I did.
Not.
I had a friend who I think I've brought up on the show a couple times. He was the kid who I hung out with mostly because our parents were friends, but I spent a lot of time at his house. And his dad got like pornography magazines, like not like gentlemen's magazines, but like hardcore pornography magazines. And he just had them. Like they were in like a stack in the bedroom. Like people could just access them if need be. And I was like, I guess that's the way some families operate. And I think it's like an extension of that. Like at some point, Playboy was just a magazine, and sure, there was some nudie pics in the middle, but it was a classy mag.
Real classy. Yeah, it's this is like a minor plot point. It's in the same little club meeting. They look at an anatomy textbook that Gretchen found in her. I think her father is a medical doctor, so he had this. Yeah. And they look at pictures of like the male anatomy, and they're like, "Is this what it looks like?" Then one of them says, "Oh yeah, my dad used to walk around naked, and this is what it looks like." It's like, yep, that's I did at least once in my life see like a dad walking around in just his underwear in a friend's house. Not a fan.
Oh,
not great.
Was it my dad?
I'm sure your dad did this too.
In his tidy whities, just walking out of the bedroom.
Yeah, that's the style.
Yeah,
this is the style of the day.
It wasn't boxers. It was little tight Fruit Looms with your belly spilling over the rim, and your best friend in your living room with you. And then Dad walks out of the bedroom and is like, "Oh, didn't know you boys were here." Walking back into the room. Yeah.
Just an extraordinarily relatable book on all levels. Like every mundane detail is like, yeah, no, that's 11-year-old. And what I like about this being such an important book is, yes, there were books about mundane things, but nothing that did it quite as right as this one before this.
Yeah, Beverly Cleary had written several teen books, and I love them. Yeah. And emotionally, they are on point, but they do skirt around a lot of this stuff. And that Blume, who loves Beverly Cleary, and was, basically was studied at the feet of Beverly Cleary, was like, basically took the Henry Huggins idea, which is, if kids can't find what they're looking for on the bookshelves, you got to write that book. And Henry Huggins was a kid saying to Beverly Cleary, "There's no books about kids like me in here." And that basically is what Blume did. So she was like, you know what? There's no books about this. There's no books where kids just talk frankly about their bodies. And all kids think about it, and everyone deals with it. I wish I had read this book when I was a kid, because there was stuff that just wasn't spoken about, and this would have allowed me to relate to what the girls in my grade were going through, because all that stuff was just sort of whispered and joked about. And if it was frankly explained to me, or like just I could see how it emotionally impacted a character, I think I would have been a lot better off. I would have been a guy with a positive attitude towards menstruation, as Dave Foley said in The Kids in the Hall.
Yeah, it is simply a good book. It is a nice book. It's an easy read. It's worth reading before the movie comes out. Does it
give you a thumbs up?
Looking forward to the movie. Yeah, I did. I approve.
Turns out this 50-year-old classic, pretty good.
Pretty good. It is curious that it's taken this long for them to make a movie of it. To me, it feels like it should have been a Bridge to Terabithia thing, where at some point there was a TV movie. There should have been something smaller along the way. That said, it did take a really long time for a Bridge to Terabithia full-length, like, theater production. There is a theater production of Bridge to Terabithia.
There's all kinds of
let's
theater
be clear about that.
productions of
There is
Bridge
at
to
least one
Terabithia.
play, but yeah.
I read that there had been a stage adaptation of this, and I could find no like online trail of the play. I think a lot of stuff about this book has been like subtly removed from websites in the ramp up to the movie. If you search for anything about this book, you're only going to find stuff about the film coming up. Like, there's a huge push. But I think part of the reason it probably took so long is because Blume didn't want them to do it. She was adamant about there being no adaptation. And finally, now that we finally have the technology to represent children on screen.
Now that we finally have the Benny Safdie to play the father.
Okay, we'll talk about the father next time, Christy. We'll go into what you think about another handsome dad. Who's playing the mom?
That's the through line of this podcast. I don't remember.
Is it like Imogen Poots or somebody? I can't remember.
Probably. I was really distracted by the Benny Safdie of it all because it's very funny to me that he's getting cast in movies that are not just like his director friends.
Oh, it's Rachel McAdams. Rachel McAdams.
Oh, that's fun.
Who isn't she like a Doctor Strange? Is she Doctor Strange?
She's a Notebook. She's a Mean Girls. She's a Doctor Strange.
Rachel McAdams.
She's an illustrious career. She's a Spotlight.
She is a Spotlight. And an Ant Girl is playing Margaret.
I think that'll be really nice.
Yeah, after she got kicked to the curb
it's gonna be a really
by
nice
Marvel.
Yeah.
It's nice that they've scraped
when
her
did this
up.
movie come out?
The 27th, 28th, end of this month. I'm looking at the cast now. I'm just like, yep.
What on earth are we going to do next week?
Yep. Who's Freddie Barnett? They've added some characters. Next, well, who knows? We're not going to do anything between this and the movie. This will give us some ramping up time.
Yeah.
I hope that after this movie comes out, I hope it's a success. I hope it comes out and is a success, and that we finally get a Then Again Maybe I Won't movie. Because after she wrote this book and it was a hit, she followed it up like the next year with the male version of this book, Then Again Maybe I Won't, about a 11-year-old boy going through puberty and noticing girls. It goes a little awry because most of the book is about him getting a pair of binoculars to spy on the teenage girl next door who's always changing in front of her window.
Oh, no.
And it ends with him thinking, I think I'm going to give up spying with my binoculars on the naked girl next door. But it ends with, then again, maybe I won't. So Judy Blume at the forefront of progressive children's novels, taking a little step back. But I'm hoping for a Bloomverse. I'm hoping we get Sheila the Great up there. I'm hoping we get Rachel Robinson, a little Deanie, a little
You
Blubber.
want some green kangaroo action?
I want that freckle juice. I want that. I just want in the background of one of these movies to be a kid like drawing freckles on his face with a marker and being like, come on. And like, you're like, oh, I get that Easter egg. It's like the Super Mario Brothers movie. Just there's little things in the background. If you're a fan, you know. A green kangaroo.
I found
hops
Freckle
by.
Juice really relatable, by the way. I
A
want to point
wifey
this out.
shows up?
I wanted Freckles very badly, so that book resonated.
I always confused it with the book The Chocolate Touch, which was about a boy who gets the chocolate touch that turns things into chocolate. It's not the same thing.
Oh, I read that book.
Also, another book in that era is How to Eat Fried Worms.
I also read that one.
Yeah, that's that whole like just that weird era of children's chapter books of just like, what am I going to write a book about? What can kids relate to? Worm eating contest. We'll get an entire novel out of that. And then in the end, he wins because he eats the last worm. How to be a perfect person in just 3 days. Great. Kid ties a broccoli around his neck. That's the whole book. It's great. It's great. Kids will relate to it. They all learn a lesson in the end. How to eat fried worms.
So this book paved the way for all of that. They were like, how can we make things relatable? Well, they're going to have to be a good bit sillier than this book.
Yeah.
That's for dang sure.
But we'll be back. When we're back, we'll be back covering the major motion picture.
A major motion picture, one that is coming out in the theater. This will happen twice this year.
Yes.
Unprecedented.
Yeah.
New ground we're covering.
I'm very excited. I'm very excited to be at the forefront of this.
Yeah.
And we'll, of course, it'll be a more in-depth episode because we'll have to discuss the career of Kelly Freeman Craig, the director of The Edge of 17.
There's a lot we're gonna have to do.
Yeah, we're gonna have to talk about these actors. We're gonna have to talk about James L. Brooks, the career of Kathy Bates, the music of Hans Zimmer, and the history of Gracie Films. So look forward to that.
If we're dictating when we finish recording this episode, we can say it is when my stomach starts growling really loudly. And I believe when you need to start brushing your teeth.
I do need to start brushing my teeth because I have a dentist appointment in an hour.
Yeah.
So yeah. Are we wrapping this one up?
I think so. I don't know. Oh, Pizza Toast Pod everywhere. You find pizza. Everywhere you find everywhere. Or Pizza Toast Podcast. Really depends. Just Google it. It's fine. We're get
good.
there.
We're all good.
Yeah. What are we saying goodbye to?
Let's say goodbye to that girl's toe that got cut off by the lawnmower when I was a freshman in high school.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Do it.
Goodbye, Phil, classmate, toe.
I hope she's okay.
Pretty good.
Are we done? It's our best episode.